What's going on, team? Proof here, and today I'm coming at you with a deck profile of a deck that I've kind of been tinkering on lately. I know I haven't been giving you guys a lot of Spike Brothers stuff lately, and I apologize for that. I've been busy with stuff, and kind of the standard stuff has been really figured out up to this point. And did I say the standard stuff? Yeah, the standard stuff. And then with the premium stuff, you're kind of just tinkering with the main three versions of the deck, which are Bad End, Hell Hard, and then the standard plus version. But this one is a twist on the Hell Hard 8 deck, aka Crazy 8, that I wanted to use featuring Axe Diver, which was an idea that I got from somebody in my Discord about two, 3 months ago, but I never really got around to testing it. But I figured since things are kind of slowing down before we get our next wave of support, I wanted to tinker with some stuff, and this idea came back to me, and I started to mess with it, and it's pretty fun. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over the deck briefly and then go into a replay just to kind of showcase what the deck can do, as Atlas behind me is going crazy. But as for the deck itself, well, first of all, this is the Vanguard deck builder website. I know the creator has been kind of talking about changing some stuff up, but in the meantime, it still has all the cards up, so I wanted to throw the deck together on here because it's much more clear than using CFA. Excuse me, and I didn't want to put it together on tabletop. But for the deck list here, it's gone through some changes, and this is the most present version. And the replay I'm going to show you guys has the old version of the deck, which has Gary Gannon in it. But this one here, I took out the Gary Gannons and added more mecha trainers. My thinking was, if I'm using Gary Gannon to dig for the pieces, may as well just maximize the pieces since I have the space to do so, which is where the extra mecha trainers came into play. And then I have five new crits, A, because to help myself defensively early, and B, because on the Hell Hard turn, the criticals is kind of like an extra attack for free, which is nice because more times than not your opponent won't block the Vanguard attack to save cards for later. So I play 5 crit, 7 draw, 7 new draws because of the 10k power, and then 4 Lindsay, which is searchable through jelly beans down here. And that's why you want to use her, is because you have these extra jelly beans here to search for her. So you effectively have 12 heal triggers in your deck that you can have access to enable your Hell Hard 8 as soon as possible. And then we have 4 Wonder Boy here because he's part of the main combo with Axe Diver here, which I'll get into in the video. 2 Frog Raider because it's searchable and you need him for Axe Diver for power. Excuse me. 2 Acrobat Verde for stride and help. And then 4 Tier just to help countercharge if you have the amount of cards necessary to enable the combo, because Axe Diver here uses a counter blast every time you use it. So if you run out of counter blast, you can't use Axe Diver anymore. So that's where Tier comes into play, because it's the only form of battle phase counter charge that we have access to that's easy to use. And it's a grade 1, unlike Devil Watch, which is the other one that I was talking about. Axe Diver here as the main combo piece, and for charge, and that's why we have Ryzen here over a Force Vanguard, because Axe Diver needs Ryzen in his, or your Vanguard needs Ryzen in the name to use the skill. 3 Spike Bouncer, just for either early game presence or for drawing cards on your combo turn if you have the counter blast to use it. 2 Bracky, new Bracky, partly because it's a holdover from when I used Gary Gannon in the deck, and partially because it's kind of like a sniper unit in terms of it gets a lot of power really early, so you can use it to ping down a troublesome rear guard, or you can use it to force damage on your opponent if you have the opportunity to. Like early game, if you need to abandon the Hell Hard plan and go for a more aggressive option, that's where Bracky really shines. And then we have 1 Monty, because if you lack a grade 2 but you have jelly beans in hand, you can search it out with jelly beans, and then you can ride up normally and successfully. So jelly beans with Monty kind of gives you a pseudo, what's this, 7, 9, 10, kind of like 14 grade 2s in essence. So that's where the flexibility of jelly beans comes into play. And then we have 4 Tech Booster Ryzen, the base Ryzen. I like him more because of the search ability, and because that search ability comes with an extra 5k power. So if you use the search out Frog Raider on your Hell Hard turn, it becomes a 22k booster, and then you can add Hellhard's boost on top of that to make it 22k booster, which is very worthwhile for most of your combo chains, because you're trying to force your opponent either to try to close out the game or try to force them from low damage to win the game, and that's where that power really comes into play. Excuse me. You could use Rising Great Star because it definitely meshes well with the idea of you playing a little more passive early, and you can turn excess cards in your hand into an additional dig with the GB2 skill. And I kind of thought about it, but I really just like the base Rising's ability to enable Frog Raider with the power, and it helps play around certain G guards in the premium format, such as Denial Griffin or maybe Hetero Round Dragon, to get back your Frog Raider, things like that, much more easily. And then Jelly Beans for the flexibility of searching out your heals, or for searching out your Monty, or for being a stride fodder if you have a lot of them in your hand. And then the G guards here, or the G zone here really doesn't matter so much. You have Agrius here in case you need to be more aggro, Bacaro here to turn junk in your hand into a full board, basically. Hellhard the finisher, Dust, which you really aren't going to be using much because of the new guard rules and because guards have gotten bigger, so he's kind of lost some oomph, and you don't really play the pieces to it, but there might be a time somewhere down the way to where the extra damage with the stride power, with Rising, etc. help close out a game for you. Sea Breeze, just because you can, if your opponent is playing passively, you can counterblast 2 to get to your Sea Breeze and then go into Hellhard 8 from there. Marindal, because it's an act phase flipper that can attack into rear guards, which is really good for the premium format right now in terms of damage controlling. So I played 3 of those. And then the 7 G guards, 3 of which are Linus to help enable the flipping. Gaze here to put cards back for you. Raktum here to help filter, because you might dig for either stride fodder or that last heal you might need. And then maybe Dismal in case you might need it. And that's the deck. Hope I flesh it out quickly. But if you have any questions, leave questions in the comments down below and I'll try to answer them as best I can. And then from here, let's go into one of the replays real quick and I'll show you how the deck works. Alright, so here's the replay that I was telling you about, where it's the old version of the deck, so Gary Gannon might come into play, I can't really remember. But going against Shadows here, my main thought, and I'm going first, is to not play into Blast or Dark such that I lose my Mecha Trainer. So since I have Acrobat in my hand, I ride up, call Acrobat to the side, and then search out Rising here. And what this does is that it allows me to give them a damage while letting them have a target to play around. I can still play around Blast or Dark while keeping my Mecha Trainer around, so I don't need to worry about the twin drive, double crit, sack mess going on. And as you can see here, so with Hellhard 8, you want to try to have 3 heals in your hand by the time you finish your first stride turn, because that way you can triple G guard over the course of your opponent's turn to enable Hellhard 8. And since I have 2 heals showing and then a third one over here, I know I have 1 heal left. So in essence, I didn't want to lose it to damage and blow up that whole game plan. So I chose to search it out, and then I stayed on grade 2 for a turn to pressure him to ride up. So then that way I could stride and then go into Hellhard 8 right after that. Because you can first stride Hellhard 8, but it requires 4 heals, and it's not a super practical means because that triple drive you get on your first stride turn helps your hand out so much, because Hellhard 8 needs cards in your hand to function. So pretty much I'm just taking all this here, these 2, and I didn't want to be at 4 damage before his first stride turn. So that's where those extra crit, that extra V crit comes into handy there for that extra protection. So I ride up, stride, and then I flip up a Cray Elemental to help enable Tier, because Tier needs Cray Elementals to function in case that comes into effect there. And now I have 3 G guards in my hand. So then this way, if I use all 3 to flip up 5 cards in my G zone, which is a regular G guard plus 2 Linuses, that way I can enable to be at GB7 by the end of my opponent's turn to then go into Hellhard 8 on my turn. And this attack here, I should have G guarded with this one because I lost an extra card in my hand for no real reason here. Because I could have G guarded this one, and then I could have double G guarded Drag Abyss here. and then I could have taken this one. And the reason I could have done that is because it plays around my opponent not attacking anymore. And so if my opponent here just did those 2 attacks and then passed turn, I would have been kind of stuck in that I would have been at 4 damage. He would have had a lot of cards in hand. I would not have been able to finish the game, and my opponent would have had a more dangerous stride option available, because then he could have closed out the game from there. But my opponent didn't do that, so I triple G guarded as I expected to, and now I'm in Hell Hard 8. And for the combo to work, I need an Axe Diver with a Frog Raider behind it over here, and then at some point I need to get Wonder Boy over here. So I got 5 cards in my hand now, and I called out Frog Raider here, and I gave it the power boost from Hell Hard 8, and I gave it the trigger boost. Now it's a 32k booster. And then I attack with Axe Diver, give it the Hell Hard boost, so after it attack, I put it into the soul, search out Wonder Boy, and now I have my chain put together. So Wonder Boy attacks with the power boost, and with Hell Hard you don't need to put it into the soul immediately. So I do the same with Axe Diver, but I do it this time, and now Axe Diver here binds, calls Wonder Boy. Wonder Boy puts Axe Diver back because Axe Diver Soul blasts out a card. And now the chain is going, and I'm gonna let it play out. So I put a card in, call out Axe Diver. Axe Diver is Counter Blast, Soul Blast, bind a card, call it back out. And if Axe Diver is charging, they both get plus 5k, which it is. And so now Wonder Boy attacks for 28k every loop, and then Axe Diver attacks for 14 plus whatever Frog Raider, or 24 plus whatever Frog Raider is. So 24 plus 32 is 56k. And the reason I'm having fun with this combo is that 1 card equals 2 attacks, and 2 decent sized attacks at that. It's because you have 28k from Wonder Boy here once the loop is going, which means your opponent needs two defensive triggers to make Wonder Boy not be able to attack you anymore, which is pretty substantial because you're kind of rolling the dice. And it's kind of like old Aqua Force stuff. And then Axe Diver over here is attacking for upwards of 56,000. I think this is the max out attack it can get, minus the, well, that's not true, because if I triple trigger and I give it all to Frog Raider, then it's becoming a massive attacker here. But Axe Diver's attack here is more variable, but it's gonna be over 41,000 more times than not. And this versus the weakness of this one is that your opponent's defensive triggers matter more, so it's kind of harder to push them from low damage to win every single time versus a more dedicated charge based deck. But the positive side is that, as I just mentioned, the more cards you have in your hand, you kind of double your amount of attacks. So if I have 6 cards in hand with the regular deck, I have 6 attacks. But in this one, with the Counter Blast enabled, I can have upwards of 12 attacks with the combo because it's a 2-for-1 special on attacks there. So that's the deck. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm still refining it, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of what I've been working on in terms of the progress with it, and kind of give you guys the ball and see if you wanted to run with it and refine it and tweak it up on your own, because I'm interested to see if other people wanted to try it out. So that'll do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and until the next one, peace, be easy.